Hi everyone, coming back at you with some long overdue video responses to some questions and things that have been out there in the community recently. This particular video is going to be a response to Brady, aka 23 Penguins 32's posting of the list of 10 questions that come from Inside the Actors Studio, the program. And these questions are just kind of like it's kind of like a little personality test, I suppose. But that you're presented with these 10 questions and you're just supposed to come up with responses just off the top of your head. You're not supposed to think about them a great deal beforehand. So I just browsed the list of questions again just a moment ago to remind myself just the general overview of what I'm going to be tackling here. And then I decided, to come here and record my responses for you. So let's have a little fun with this. So the first question is, what is your favorite word? And this one's actually more difficult than I thought, and than I think it normally would be for some other folks, because I come from an English literature background, and so a lot of my background is steeped in language, in the English language specifically, and so words are something of a particular interest for me. So picking out one word that I find particularly interesting, to the point that I would call it my favorite, I don't know, there's a couple of funny words, and maybe I'll cheat and give you maybe two answers here. One that kind of recently came up because of one of Master of Flowers' more recent videos, the word beard. I don't know what it is about the word beard, but it's just a fun word to say. I like the word beard, and I'll take opportunities to really go to extremes with word play with the word beards at times. Maybe I'll just leave it there. I'll say beard. Beard is an interesting and kind of fun word. I don't know if it's truly my favorite, but that's good enough for me. And what is your least favorite word? And again, it's kind of a difficult thing, but if I had to say, I would say my least favorite word is probably the word so. And that being used in the context of somebody who, you're trying to explain something to somebody, or you're trying to give somebody feedback on, you're trying to give them constructive criticism, and the only response that they can muster is so. And yeah, I just think that it basically signifies that somebody's turning their brain off, that they're not really willing to engage you in any kind of intelligent manner. And so that's kind of a mood killer for me. So this kind of actually segues nicely into the third question, which is, what turns you on? And as some other folks have done with this question, I guess I'll tackle it from two different angles. If we're talking about in a romantic and or sexual sense, one of my most significant turn on, I suppose, would be voluptuous, full-figured women, and specifically those that carry a bright smile. A smile can really impact the way you view a person, and you can tell by the way they carry themselves whether they do so in a positive or negative fashion. That really impacts that sense of magnetism or attraction. But in a non-romantic or sexual connotation, I suppose generally my my turn on would be a good laugh, a good kind of belly shaking, like rocks you to your core laugh, the kind of laugh that leaves you gasping for air. It's very rare that I get to laugh that hard, but when I do, it's kind of like, that's my drug, and that's kind of what I strive for every day, is to find opportunities to get just a really good deep-seated laugh. So what turns you off? Well, again, in a romantic, sexual sort of sense, smoking is definitely one of those. And I don't understand, I just don't comprehend where a lot of, and maybe it's been changing in popular culture lately, but it seemed like for a time, and even through to today, pop culture seems to consider smoking, especially smoking after sex, to be somehow enticing or provocative, or it's like a woman is more sexy if she's having a cigarette afterwards, and that is just an absolute utter turnoff for me. But then again, in a non-romanticized sense, my general turnoff would be closed-mindedness. Somebody who basically has decided that there is nothing left out there for them to consider. There's no other influences upon their views and beliefs that they should be considering. That they're content with the way they perceive and understand the universe, and that nothing really should intrude upon that. Just a general sense that somebody has made up their mind, and not only, I understand sticking to what you believe in, or if you've built a foundation for a particular view or belief, that if it's really deep seated and if you've really thought it through, then absolutely be determined or dedicated in that, whatever that ideal is. But the difference for me is that even if you've got a solid idea, you should still be willing to and interested in hearing other people's perspectives, whether or not you think that that's going to impact your particular stance. But just refusing to listen or consider at all is antithetical to my concept of what a human being should be and should do. What sound or noise do you love? I think I love the sound of a light breeze, or kind of just a steady light wind rustling through the trees. The sound of the leaves kind of brushing up against each other, and so it's kind of the quiet forest, that sort of a thing. I was kind of raised in the country, and so we had a good bit of kind of open land where we lived, and so my brother and I would spend an awful lot of time outdoors, and we would just spend time, running around, throwing sticks and rocks at each other. And so maybe that is part of that sentiment, that there were times that I just enjoyed, and I still enjoy today, basically just sitting out and listening to nothing and realizing how significant nothing is, and it all kind of culminates, I guess, in sitting under a tree and listening to the wind blow through it. What sound or noise do you hate? I have a very specific sound that I hate, and it's kind of ironic that it's intended to be used to entice, and it's especially bad in radio commercials, and it's one of the many, many reasons why I do not listen to commercial radio any longer. It's the sound of a drink, of a carbonated drink, usually used in soda or beer ads, being poured into a glass, and hearing the fizzing and gurgling and the sloshing as it's being poured. I cannot stand that sound. It drives me absolutely crazy. Again, and it's kind of interesting because in person it doesn't seem to bother me quite so much, but I think it's just the way that it's accentuated in an advertisement. Television advertisements are pretty bad, but radio advertisements seem like it's just horrible. Apologies for the interruption. I had to go attend to my children. So sound or noise you hate, that was number 6. So number 7, what is your favorite curse word? Now, I'll admit that I curse a bit more than I am proud to say I should. What can you do? But I do kind of agree with some of the other folks who have talked about how it's unfortunately too commonplace these days, that it's basically, cursing is just used mid-sentence sometimes, and just for no good reason at all. It's just for people to try to be edgy, or or just because they simply don't understand the context, the weight of what it is to curse. I'm not pretending to be an angel. I curse quite a good bit, and it's just usually to myself out of frustration. I don't ever curse at another person. But my favorite one would probably be mother effer. I use that one far too much, and I also use the good old goddamn quite a bit. So apologies if I offend anyone, but yeah, those are my two most frequently used, which are some of the more heinous in many people's eyes. But they just roll off the tongue nicely for me. They give me a good when I'm really frustrated about something. They seem to kind of be a good way to let that energy out. They're some of the more satisfying words to say. Number 8, what profession other than your own would you like to attempt? And there's really kind of two answers to this question, but I'm going to tackle them in the order that they would most likely occur in my actual life as it is now. The first is a voice actor. I've always been incredibly fascinated with voice acting, especially in traditional animation. Of course, you know, as a voice actor, you take what work you can. But yeah, I've always liked that because I've always liked a lot of animated programs, cartoons, and other things, and even with, you know, the 3D animated movies that come out now. You know, I've enjoyed quite a few of those, and I just love the idea of being able to voice a character. I'm not a particularly eloquent actor in terms of, I don't know that I have very good stage presence, but I have fun with my voices. I like to do voices. I like to imitate voices, and so that's a naturally appealing career for me. And the other would be one that goes way, way back into my earliest years, and that's a paleontologist. I've always been fascinated with dinosaurs and just basically, you know, the extinct eras of our planet Earth and the creatures and the animals and plants that lived then. And so even when I was very little, I always thought that I would grow up to be a paleontologist so I could dig up dinosaur bones and I could study them and just learn about, you know, what the world was millions and millions of years ago before the earliest ancestors to humanity ever graced this planet. And so if I could, I would love to become a paleontologist. I'm pretty far from that path right now. It would take a lot of schooling, and it would take a lot of time, effort, and money that I can't afford at this point. So that'll probably never happen, but hey, we can dream, right? Number 9, what profession would you not like to do? And I think somebody else tackled this one in a similar sense to myself, but I would never like to be in the armed forces of any sort. I would never like to be basically in a service where I was expected to condone, promote, engage in violent acts. I am not a violent person. I'm a lover, not a fighter. I have no interest in the idea of having to kill someone, and the idea of even having to hurt someone. Inflicting any kind of physical pain on someone doesn't mesh with my personality. So yeah, any Army, Navy, Air Force, anything where there's even the slightest possibility that I would have to be in a position to make instant judgments or be commanded to carry out orders that would inflict pain, suffering, and even possibly death on someone else, absolutely not my cup of tea. And then finally, number 10, if heaven exists, what would you like to hear God say when you arrive at the pearly gates? I'd like to hear him say, "You got it right. Thank you." And that just meaning that that rather than succumb to the temptation to be an absolutist, to be close-minded, and to read nothing beyond the words on the page, is not what he intended for us, and that that the truth is that it's a challenge. It's a challenge to step beyond accepting things at face value and discovering your own meaning to life, to the universe, to existence, to reality. And so I'd like him to say thanks. Thanks for taking it to heart and not to head.